How's it going, internets? I hope you're having a lovely day. It's that time again. It's time to get into some animation, time to get that imagination all revved up, and time to get into some creativity. For today, I have some inspiration from the beautiful work of Mac Raboy. If you're not familiar with his work, check right over here. He is a golden age comic book illustrator extraordinaire. Just leaf through a couple of his phenomenal pages here. You can see there's definitely some very high illustration work going on here, mixed with the comic book sensibilities that we've come to love. He definitely helped found a lot of great classical kind of exciting poses that we all are very familiar with in the comic book world, but he just did such a wonderful job of adding that extra level of like high art to his stuff as well. He's definitely revered very highly in there, and you can see why. I really tend to be big fan of kind of the flat, older style of coloring as well, where it wasn't so much these bright colors, but they were more muted colors. I really enjoy that too, and that's just more of a older style comic book thing. But I thought he's really great. Definitely, if you guys want to look more up about him, I will throw a link in the description below. But I did want to share a quote with you guys that I was able to find, and this one comes from his son while talking about his work ethic. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of information that you can find that's specifically from him himself. But when he was talking about kind of his work ethic and stuff, he said, yeah, nothing was ever good enough. Therefore, it couldn't be seen by anyone because it would reflect poorly on him. And I thought that was interesting. And this kind of is I guess, the counterpart to the way that I work here with these videos is that with the stuff that I share with you guys, there's days where, and I'm going to be completely open and honest with you guys, where I'm done with an animation and I do not like it. I don't, and I would normally, you know, if this was something that I was going to say that I'd put on my reel, I would just dump it, because you have to be kind of critical and harsh with your work, and every once in a while they'll come across one, and this is probably for myself. I'm very hypercritical of anything that I create, which is why this is kind of a challenge for me sometimes too, because there are days where I'm like, this is, you know, this particular, not this one I'm using right now, but there's sometimes there's a rig that I don't think is built in a way that I'm very successful at animating. I'll put it that way. But I think there's important things to be shared that way that weren't there when I was first learning. So I felt like for the animation community and those looking to start to understand the basics of animation and to start to learn it, that it would be a resource for them. So that was really the goal. But there's definitely, I know that with my drawing and illustration work, that critical side really comes out, and I have a hard time ever putting out something that I don't 100% go, you know what, that's something I can stand behind. When I first started out illustrating and stuff, I did it kind of just as almost a journalish type of way of like, oh, this is where I'm drawing now, this is where I'm drawing now, and that was 5 or 6 years ago when I really started trying to do that. And I look back on that work now, and I'm just, to me it's kind of cringeworthy. And if you're not familiar with that terminology, it just it's not something that I'm super comfortable with those works. So I find with my illustration work, I'm very much more hermitable. What would be the word? Very much more of a hermit with sharing that work. But I think this is the way that he's talking with this quote right here is really how I feel about a lot of work. But I think it's important to not always be that way, especially in the current generation and age that we're at. You have to be out there, you have to be sharing with people, you have to be talking with people, you have to be sharing ideas, and I think it's important, especially in this community, to not only show the good side, but to show the bad side or the struggles and everything too. I think that's a little more honest with work, even though I don't know that I feel like if I was looking from an outsider perspective of somebody higher up in the art world, I would sometimes probably look critical at somebody doing something like this, but I feel like there's a different audience that's trying to learn, and you want to be able to be. There should be someone out there in the creative world who's just open with, this is what it was, my muses were allowing me to create today, and hopefully tomorrow will be better, or whatever it may be. But I'm beginning to ramble, so let's get into some animation. Either way, this quote definitely, for me at least, causes me to think through my process, and because it's very, I agree with it so much, but I tend to not follow it in certain areas as well. So for me, it's a very thought-provoking quote. So let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. But let's get into some animation so I can actually do something here and not just ramble on about what I'm thinking about the art world today. I love you guys lots. You're amazing, by the way. So if you're not familiar with what we'll be doing for the rest of the video, is I go off and I find a rig that I've never used before. In this case, it's the Dumb Man rig. It's a free rig over at Creative Crash, and give ourselves 48 frames of animation. That's 2 seconds, and we kind of just go from there. A little bit of just hang out with me while we animate, a little bit of over the shoulder, kind of some instruction or guidance or talking through the process, but most of all, my goal with doing these videos and my animation especially is to hopefully encourage you guys and inspire you guys. And if you're looking for some information out there, to offer some of that so that it can be kind of a stepping stone for you, or an encouragement place, so you guys don't feel alone in your art day. Again, I am evidently very rambly today, so let's get into animating. I was thinking for today's video, I would do a lift and a walk backwards, kind of lift and drag there, so we can play around with some weight and what we would do with handling that. So let's get in here and play around. Now, I did do a teeny bit of cursory movement with this rig, and it seems like this one should be a pretty strong rig to work with. It seemed like there were some good things that were going in here to animate with. And I'm finding myself drawn more to these hyper polygonal style rigs, where they look almost really vintage animation style. I'm finding myself, the more that I use rigs like this, drawn to that. So this is one of those, and I really like that. I think I might keep this hand in IK though. We'll see. Let's go ahead and rotate that down. Over. And rotate that there. No, let's go back. There we go. See, and there's a little bit of kind of like world constraint for this hand itself, so I wonder where that's coming from. But now if we want to make this heavy, we want to try and keep this arm pretty close to straight there. That helps exemplify the weight. Let's drop that shoulder down, and then let's go ahead and hunch the chest a little bit more here as well. And I'm in talks with getting commissioning some background music from a great musician soon, so hopefully I'll be able to throw that in here in the channel just to keep it a little more lively during some of those portions of the video where I tend to be thinking a little bit more and not talking as much. So hopefully that'll be something. I'm interested to know what you guys will think about that as well. Just let me know in the comments below, as usual. Because this is kind of a different format of video on YouTube that I've really never seen anyone else really do. I've seen a couple like Let's Animates, but not really like animation hangout kind of instructional stuff. So it's kind of new ground here, and that's why I tell you guys all the time, you guys are the creative future if you're watching this, because you really are. If you can come up with ideas and implement them and try to share them out there with the world, and not just mimic what other people are doing, that's how people come up with the most popular or the next big thing or any of that kind of stuff. So never sell yourself short. You guys are the creative future, and I hope you appreciate that and appreciate the time that we live in. It's so historic and amazing that there's so much knowledge out there that we can share with each other, that I think it's just fascinating and wonderful. So again, let's go ahead and I said, we're just going to kind of do a carry and drag, like if this was a big piece of timber or something, lumber, or a big pipe. And I tend not to do a lot of modeling, as you can tell, in any of these videos, just because I want to keep it resource light, so we can get a good frame rate for the videos as well. Yeah, let's do it so that it would drag here. A little bit less. Put it up. And then I think I want to exemplify the weight a little bit more, so let's go there. Bring that out a little bit more. Let's spread the feet out even more, really push this pose. Bring the hips down. And the reason I'm going to leave this as an IK is for more parenting reasons. We'll have one hand that really leads it, and the other one will just be kind of attached to the pole itself. Bring that in a little bit more. Yeah, I think I'll try and do something more like this. And push them back a little bit more. I'll go ahead and rotate that down. Bring that back. Reminds me, while I'm thinking about this, if you guys are ever looking for a great book on kind of weight, that was really memorable for me. Wayne Gilbert is a phenomenal animator and animation teacher, and he has a wonderful book out there that unfortunately got lost for me. There's a signed copy too, I'm really bummed, in the great storage facility disaster of 2011. Let me see. I'm going to pause this real quick so I can get the name for you, just in case I'm just going to resume that. Yeah, it's called Simplified Drawing for Planning Animation. It's a phenomenal book about, well, the thing that I really thought was great in there is the way that he talks about getting weight into your animation. I thought he was really great at that. Let me pause that and go back. He just can explain things in a very down-to-earth, simple-to-understand manner, especially for beginning animators. So if you guys are looking for more on that, definitely. He's somebody that I always think about whenever I'm doing anything that involves a lot of weight in my animation. And a really, really down-to-earth and top-notch guy from the little bit of interaction that I've had with him. Yeah, let's go ahead and kind of get a better hand pose here. It's important to get that storytelling pose, get that message across of what we're going to be animating. So let's go ahead and get that in there. Yeah, put that thumb. And wool here. I always love how different rigging artists set up thumbs. I always find that just as always interesting after using, what have you been through so many different rigs over this last year from so many different people that it's just really interesting to see the variation in how they set up their thumb controls. So if you're a rigging artist, let me know what your methodology is for how your naming conventions and all that stuff. I always think it's interesting because they're very similar, but each rigging artist seems to have their own unique way that they set that up. Yeah, let's do some pinky here. Just do a little bit different grouping there. And bring it down. Okay. Now let's drop the head down a little bit more too, for the neck, and we'll tip the head back a little bit as well. Okay, let's go and save our file so far, and we are using Autodesk Maya 2014 for today's video. We're going to zero that out, bring that hand strange how they do the rotation here as well, because they have the rotation as a separate controller from the translation, which is kind of interesting choice there. And again, I want to try and keep these arms as straight as I can so that I can get a nice bit of that straight to help sell the weight of the things that he's carrying. Because if you're carrying something heavy, it's going to pull your arms down, so you're not going to have a lot of bend in there. So it's an important factor to try and get into any of your animation, is get those straights built in there. Alright, then I think the rest we can really just do with finger shapes. Got a pretty close there for thumbs, or for the hand posing. Here, just so I don't break that thumb so much. Okay, and just keep tweaking this a little bit more here. Let's start getting into the finger. And now that we have a different angle, it's nice because it really separates the posing, though we have the same idea on both hands. We got some different posing options here, which is nice. It's always important to try and work not stuck to a camera as well. So when you work too much to a specific camera, you don't always see things in 3D space as well as you should. Even though towards the end of your animation, you always want to, tweak everything to get the best results that you can for that particular camera. It's important when you're kind of just building your animation rather than getting to the finishing touches to really kind of do it in 3D space. And that was something that I know when I was first learning, I tended to just make one camera and then play your animation in that. And it wasn't until I really started doing more stuff really on my own and developing my own methodology of working that I really got into that. And I really felt that it helped solidify a lot of my weight and my posing to make it a little bit stronger as well. Although I do feel that I could probably push my line of action more throughout my animation. So while I'm saying that, let's go ahead and tweak that a little bit. We got a fairly nice line throughout there. You want to try and make that line as simple as you can while you're working. So usually just one big straight would be good. But and if we were just posing it out, probably, if we weren't doing an exact walk, I'd probably do something a little more like that. But if we're doing a walk back, I don't want to push that so extreme there. Okay, so let's go ahead and set our frame range, which we said we were doing 48 frames. And we'll see, maybe we'll do a little more, a little less there. And let's go ahead and grab everything here. And we'll set our first key there. Maybe we'll set it from, is there any pop-up? Let's set that there. So that way, it's going to keep coming here. Alright, 1 second here. Okay, sorry about that. I had to pause that for a second. There's an expression that was showing, so if you guys want to turn that off, just go to Window Animation Editors, and go to Expression Editor, and you can just hide it from there. So let's go back and set our frame range. I want to go from 0 to 48, and just took a little bit longer than usual to turn that off. Let's create a locator. Let's pop it in here. my expression editor wasn't working there. So, but pop that in there, and then we'll go ahead and actually we'll leave it right in the middle there. And then we'll grab the cylinder, pull outliner up, show all, so we can see our locator. We'll control click the locator, and we'll parent those together. Then we should be able to move the cylinder with the locator. Okay, and then we'll grab the hand, we'll control click the locator, and I'm not going to do that just yet actually. I'm going to create another locator before I do that last one, and lift it up here, pop it right in the middle there, and then we're going to take this hand here and control click that locator there and parent those. Just hit P on our keyboard. Then when we do locator 2, we can move. I'll grab that one, control click and parent it together because they rotate and the translate are on 2 different ones here. And if we did that right, there we go. Feels about right. And now let's go ahead and take this locator and shift click the cylinder and parent those together. Then when we take locator 1, should be moving everything together. Well, that's kind of funky. What is it doing? Okay, let's take locator 2 moves. Let's take a couple steps back. Let's take just that, control click the locator, parent those together. And let's take locator 2, parent it to the cylinder. Just doesn't want to stay. Okay, so let's step back. Let's go back to just when we had one locator here. So let's take this hand and just parent it straight to the cylinder. See if that works. No, it wasn't working either. Well, let's at least get this hand working first. Shift click it and parent it to that hand. Now if we move this hip, it should move the cylinder as well. We're just going to have to worry about how this hand's going to affect everything here. I mean, if worst comes to worst, we can just do every single one here. Just key it, but I'd like to be able to parent it if we can. Let's try it. Go ahead and just parent those together. Alright, let's do that again. We'll create a locator here, lift it up, pop it in the middle, there, and take the hand, parent it to locator 2, take locator 2, maybe we can even just parent it to hand 1, see if that will work. Alright, that'll work. Not as the best that I wanted to do, but it'll still, I'd rather parent it to the cylinder instead of the other hand, but at least this way it'll give us kind of what we want. Okay, so let's go ahead and everything. And we want to set our first key here, like that, and let's start building this walk. Finally, it seems like a little bit longer with this one just because I had to go in and get that expression turned off. But let's start building this walk. So let's do our feet and our hips. We'll build those in here. Bring our hips back. Yeah, I'll get that one. Our foot back there. We kind of want to mimic the spacing spacing fairly similar. Okay. And we'll go ahead and grab this foot, keep there, bring it back there. Let's hips it again, grab this foot, keep it there, and bring it back. And then I want to check my spacing a little more in the graph editor for this one, because I feel like there's some decent variations there that I want to try and clean up a little bit more. So let's go ahead and look at this now, see what we're doing. Alright, starting to work. So let's look at how we did with our translation. It's alright, it's not too bad, but let's clean that up a little bit and make that a more consistent value. Make sure we're still recording here. Okay. And make sure we didn't have any slow ins or slow outs there. Let's see that. And this foot move from here to there doesn't feel as long as it should be, so let's push it back a little bit more. As well. Okay. Alright, it's actually feeling pretty good already. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of side to side here on the hips. Actually, let's do our passing positions first. So let's go ahead and lock in again all those main keys that we already built in. And let's get those passing positions started. And I want to keep these feet pretty low. I almost even like just having them scoot, but I don't think I want to do a little bit of raise here. But I kind of like the idea of just with the feet scooting on the ground there. Let's lift it up here, down, lift it up, and bring it down. So let's see. Okay, and let's go ahead and see, rotate that foot down, back, down, because we want to keep these steps pretty low. Okay, that feels pretty good. And let's look at the other foot here. And again, we want to just drag that down there. So these steps aren't very labored at all, but they feel pretty, like a minimal amount of effort is going into these steps because the big amount of weight is going to be over here. That's what the body's going to be focused on here. Alright, and let's do a little bit of side to side here. So we'll push the hips over this way. And delete that one. I don't know why that was there. And we'll push the hips over here. I don't want to do a lot of up and down on this one because I want them to feel fairly not really bouncy. I mean, obviously I'm going to need to do a little bit, but I think I want the bulk of it to be kind of a side to side move rather than up and down. So we'll go ahead and still do a little bit of it here. But again, we don't want to do too much for a lot of reasons, but the main one is we don't want that to like lift up and down too much because that'll exaggerate so much there. So we're just going to do a little bit. Let's look at our graph editor again, and let's clean that up. And again, I'm going to minimize that even more and really just keep it a small amount of that. Okay, let's see that now. Just added that little bit of weight there, so that's good. But don't want to do too much. Let's do a little bit of rotate Z here, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, and then zero out. Let's see that now. Okay, and then we'll take the chest and we'll do a little bit to offset that here as well. Try to keep it the shoulders to be feeling too much like that. We really want to feel that just in the hips, but we're going to have to offset it so that it's not too big down there. But right now you can just really feel it in the shoulders, which isn't really the idea that I wanted to do too much. So let's tone it down in the hips so I can tone it down in the shoulders more. Even it out a bit more. Okay, and then let's again grab all of the parts of the chest or the spine here. And we just want to rotate these. Make sure we got everything. Just control clicking to select those. And we're just going to scale that back a little bit more. Let's see. Alright, now let's do a little bit of rotate Y here. Just a little bit towards the front planted foot. And we'll clean that up a little bit more here too. And kind of even it out so we're not really favoring one side over the other, which we kind of were. Let's look at it again. What I really like about this rig too is that we're getting really good frame rate on here, which is really nice. And let's go ahead and save our file just since we haven't done that for a little while. Now let's do a little bit of counter animation in the chest for that rotate Y that we just did. Again, what I do want to try and avoid too is any elbow pops. I want to keep these as straight as I can. Let's look at that rotate Y again. Again, we don't need a lot of this, so we're just going to do a little bit and try and even it out a little bit more. Let's see. Bit of movement in these arms. So up and back, up and back, up and back, and up and back. Maybe we should do this every 12. Instead of every 6. So let's go ahead and see that. And if I don't like that idea, I can always keep it, but I want to do a little bit of movement in those arms, so let's see. Let's go the other way. Let's do these at 6, 18, 24. Try to keep it about the same level. Good balance point here. You can see it dips down and goes up. So try to keep those a little more level there for the amount of intersection that we get. I don't mind a little bit, but it's obviously a little too much. So let's see. Feels better in the end, so let's look at it again. So obviously we need to do a little bit more here. And guess, kind of to counter the up and down there that we built in there. Since just the end of it. Okay, that's too far down. Feels about right. Feels about right. That's too far up. Let's look at the cylinder itself, and maybe we can do just a little bit of sway on it. Maybe we'll have to do it with the wrist here. A little bit this, a little bit back, a little bit forward, and then we'll delay that by a frame or so, just so we can get a little bit of that swing to it. Okay. Feels a little too bouncy now. Let's look at the rotate wise then. Let's try just getting rid of it again. Now we're going to need that to stay down there. That's too far down. Let's bring that back up. Bring that back down. Okay, back up. Lost our stuff there because I was mimicking frames there. So let's do it this way. Now, one thing I need to take into account is this shoulder. I'll push that back. See that little twisting we were getting there? That's funky. That's a little better. Alright, it's feeling okay. I like it, especially with kind of that head-on angle too. I think it's a little more dynamic. So let's add a little bit of up and down in the head here. Or in the neck, rather. Down, up, and this is obviously going to be too much, this is going to be too bouncy, but we'll scale it back and kind of offset it with how we do the head as well. So let's see. Okay, first of all, let's minimize it and kind of even it out a little more. And I want to do a little bit of keep alive in the hands, and then once we're there, I think I really just kind of like where it's at right now. Definitely a lot we can tweak, but I think the idea is working. Alright, and then we're gonna do a little bit opposite in the head, so down. just so we get a little bit of movement in there, since we're keeping the chest a little bit more reserved for this one. Let's see. Okay, I think I might need to invert all of this, because it feels like it's going in instead of going out, so I'm going to flip that. And then I'm going to flip what I did on the neck as well. Alright, let's take a look and see how it feels. Let's go ahead and delay that about 2 frames. Okay, and let's minimize that a lot too. Let's see how it feels now. Alright, and let's minimize the neck. And do a little bit less on the head. Next, I always feel, for myself at least, that there's a little bit more give and take in trying to figure out where a good balance is. Yeah, let's do a little bit rotate Y here, there, keep it a little more focused. It's a little swayish for me. So let's see. Let's clean it up a little bit more, probably a little bit less than that. Okay, let's see. Alright, looks pretty good. Could do a little bounce in the shoulders, but I think I'll go ahead and leave that for right now. So let's just, again, I want to grab all the stuff on the fingers and key that. And then go here, and we'll do a little bit of out, in, so we get a little bit of variation, and then out a little bit there, and a little bit here, just so we get some kind of keep alive on the fingers. Let's look at the pinky here, and push the pinky in a little bit more. And we'll do a little bit of thumb here, so let's see, thumb roll 2 here. And we kind of just want to ease into that a little bit more. So let's look at thumb roll 2, and we'll do a little bit of movement here. We'll hold it for a while, and then we'll hold that last one. Keep a couple of frames, just so we get some movement there. Let's see. Okay, and I think overall maybe I'll do a little bit more, just so we get a little bit of maybe less. index fingers out a little bit. And we'll bring the mids and the tips in a little bit here. And go back to kind of what we had before. And then the thumb, let's go ahead and pull the thumb in a little bit more. Up a little bit more. Up there. And let's look at the thumb to begin with. And hold it a little bit. Let's key that. Hold that till about there. And that thumb bend, just so you get some movement in there. Key that. Hold that till about there. Okay, now let's see if there's any toes. I'd like to add a little bit of toe movement if I can here, just to vary up the feet a little bit more. So foot tap, we'll go ahead and drag that, lift it up 2 frames, and drag it down, and drag that, lift it up 2 frames, and zero it out. Let's see how it feels. Maybe a little less tap towards the end. Scale that back a little bit more. And let's look at the other foot here. Again, we'll go ahead and drag that, lift it up 2 frames, zero it out, and drag that, and lift it up there. Let's see. Alright, I think that works pretty well. So let's take a look back at what we were starting with. And we were looking at the beautiful work of Mac Raboy. And he said, yeah, nothing was ever good enough. Therefore, it couldn't be seen by anyone because it would reflect poorly on him. And that's what his son was talking about, his work ethic, and when they were going through and looking for all the stuff that they were going to eventually put on display or look to help finance the memorial stuff that they were doing for him. And I think it's important. They found tons of his work, and I guess his mom, there's another kind of anecdote that he was talking about, that his mom would go back and like find old pages that he threw away and like tape them together, because she really cared about all of his stuff. But I think as a artist or a creative person, or someone in a medium that's creative, it's important to also be able to rip up your own work and throw it away and not think everything that you come up with is grand or marvelous or wonderful, but that you have that discerning eye. There was a discussion that I read a long time ago about when an artist is, or when a creative person is first starting out, it's important to really basically have interesting taste or good taste. So let's say you're a musician and the bands that you listen to that you really love are like the Beatles and the Clash and the Rolling Stones, and you have like this high versus I'm not gonna put anybody down, but the top 40 one-hit wonder kind of style. Now again, I'm sure you could come up with an interesting hook off of that, but to have these great interests and these people that you look up to, because it's going to help influence your work. And I think you need to try and have that same taste or to look at your work in a similar format, where you can recognize the stuff that you make that's garbage, that's throwaway, and that you can also recognize when maybe you did something that works really well, and you're like, I want to chase after that and try and develop that sort of a mindset. So it's important to be critical and not think that everything that you make is worth $8,000 because I spent 3-4 hours on it. No, I mean, maybe you just basically wasted 3 or 4 hours, but you learned something in the process, and that's great and that's phenomenal. So not everything needs to be super reserved and preserved for everything. But that being said, a lot of times you can use that stuff to help others learn or encourage others or inspire others or share or learn and grow yourself as well. And there's tons of worth in that. So you have to kind of figure out how that works for yourself. I'm still learning for myself and figuring out where that fits in. But I think it's an important thing to think about as an illustrator or as an artist or animator or sculptor or any sort of creative medium, that you really can have that level of ripping it up and throwing it away and gleaning something out of it and trying to elevate yourself to a higher level of what you want to really put your name behind. So that being said, I love you guys lots. Thanks for watching and hanging out with me. Maybe you learned something along the way. Always, I'm looking forward to any sort of your comments or your criticisms or anything. I'm really interested in methodology and what you guys think, or how you would approach this shot differently, or different acting beats we could have taken, or anything like that. And always feel free down below to link anything that you guys are passionate about or that you're creating yourself. I am happy to give you some encouragement or some thumbs up or an extra set of eyes on whatever it is that you guys are working on. But I think that'll do it for today. I'm kind of a little bit rambly, so I think I'll wrap it up here. But I love you guys lots. Remember that you are the creative future. If you're watching this, just believe in yourself and you can do it, and try and have that higher level, that nothing's ever good enough. But it's always just this journey that you're taking another step, and tomorrow's another day and you can try hard tomorrow again. So that being said, I love you guys lots, and we will see you for some more animation tomorrow.